And thank you for watching KTN News. Welcome to Morning Prime, the standpoint, as we have these discussion today on whether the government is broke. Is the government broke? Is it a question of wastage in government? It is a heated debate in this studio today. Wilson Sosion, former nominated member of parliament, and Wakili constitutional lawyer Njiru Ndegwa, as we have this discussion. And before we went on the break, Wakili, you said you wanted to respond. You say you want to first give your 2 cents. Ahead. Go ahead.
I wanted to say, I've had Mheshimiwa Sosioni indicate that whatever the control of budget, Margaret Nyakango, has indicated, that for purposes of record, that William Ruto has spent over, and this is in the papers, is it 4.3 billion was spent on domestic and foreign travels. Yani Wakenya wanaambiwa bilioni 4.3 zimetumika kwa safari za huku ndani ya nchi na nje ya nchi. Alafu naambiwa bilioni 1.04 zimetumika kununua chai na mandazi. Yani hiyo ndiyo pesa yako inavyotumiwa Mkenya. 1.04 billion used to buy mandazi, to buy queen cakes and yogurts in this country. And then you say there is no wastage in government. Unless Mheshimiwa Sosioni want to tell us that Margaret Nyakango is now speaking in tongues and they are not able to understand. And that's why he's saying now he has become incoherent. I've tried to simplify it for the Kenyans. That is how your hustler government is managing your resources. And the most important thing is that we have nothing to show for these travels. I'm really perplexed when a person who appears in the name of the president says that he's going to Egypt, he's going to Saudi Arabia, he's going to India to look for jobs. And he is hawking Kenyans. He has become a hawker, hawking Kenyans left, right, and center. I have Kenyans who are, a progressive person who wants to go the Singapore way, creates jobs and creates avenues of manufacturing that is going to absorb these Kenyans. You don't start hawking Kenyans because he has simply become a hawker. But who is going to have confidence to invest in Kenya when you have a runaway mismanagement and misrule of this government like this? No one has confidence in this country. That is why William Ruto, to justify his promise and his pledge to create jobs, he has now to start hawking the blood of Kenyans.
Sosion.
Which country invest?
Let Sosion respond to that.
Which country invest in brain drain? Tell me, which country in this world will invest in a brain drain?
I think it is good, particularly when you are a learned lawyer, to try and be honest and not to spew lies that are irrationally informed. Number one, the expenditure of the office of the president is not a laissez-faire and a freestyle kind of spending. It's guided by the budget. Every office has its own budget for its own operation.
To which you are now victimizing
of its own operation. You had your time.
To which you are now victimizing the
Let me just finish his point. Let me just finish his point.
Yes, okay.
Do you want to speak for me?
No, Mwalimu,
I can still allow you to speak.
Mwalimu, you can proceed defending the indefensible.
Because this is a discussion.
I know you are struggling to defend the indefensible. You can proceed defending.
And the expenditure process in Kenya is not new. It even goes through public participation, the process of budget making process. And once the budget making process has been done, an allocation has been done,
and it passed by the Moribadi Parliament.
Wakili, let him finish.
I'm just trying to give him some points.
Okay.
That yes, it goes through the cycle, but passed by a Moribadi Parliament.
I think we shall have to agree whether I leave him for you.
No. Wakili. No, Wakili.
Okay, I hear you,
time.
Yeah, because there are rules of turn talking.
Yes.
Yeah. So expenditure of the office of the president is guided by budget. And the programs of the office of the president defines the expenditure on that particular activity. So really, there is nothing new. So all these being, do you expect the president to go and sit and sleep and stop working simply because he fears spending money that has been allocated through the budget. I think it's not right to be very political. The president's office has not gone out to use up money meant for other departments. If it is strictly within the budget, it's within the budget, and the programs are clear, and trying to portray it as wastage, I think it is being irrational. We expect the office to function, and it shall function as long as it's legitimately in place with the budget that it's supposed to operate on. That is one. So my brother here should know there is what you call budgeting, and there are investment programs in every ministry. There are investment programs in the office of the president. They must be executed. And number two, in terms of foreign travels of the president, which has been outlined, as the president of the Republic of Kenya, he is at liberty to engage in international programs. And I would like to remind him and those other incoherent fellows who don't understand, Kenya is a critical communication hub. It's a critical global destination. We must link, to grow our economy domestically, we must link Kenya with the international space and with the international community.
I agree with you. I agree with you.
When you look at economies that are doing very well, it's either they're exporting labor or they've created so much jobs. And in a country like this one, we cannot establish manufacturing and create jobs for the jobless Kenyans overnight. There are jobs in the diaspora, and negotiating for labor migration and good terms of working conditions is good. I was in Saudi Arabia and I saw Philippines. They've got about 250 labor attaches, and they negotiate and export thousands and thousands of workers who return huge earnings from the diaspora. You're talking about the dollar disappearing. The dollar will also, the dollar challenge can be sorted through labor migration. It's a noble thing. We have the Ministry of Foreign and Diaspora Affairs, and that's a deliberate agenda of government. So they are in the opposition. They're free to talk the way they will talk. But as government, government will continue working. The president will continue traveling around the world and for meetings and engaging in activities that are of great benefit to the people of Kenya. If you look at analysis the other day, no, this is not a show. This is not his show. It's our show. If you look at analysis the other day about Kenya as the most preferred destination, even Nairobi is ranked not more than number 10. Now, there's a lot of attention towards Kenya. Very positive attention
if you allow me globally, to continue staying
which here, is good. And I think
you'll make me suffer some serious hypertension because
moving forward, what the president is talking about, particularly for African countries, is breaking barriers of travel. We must open our borders. Kenya must be a free visa entry country going into the future so that we open free movement of people and goods and services within the continent so that we can grow our domestic economy and regional economy. So the agenda of the president is so concrete, so strong, so modern, so futuristic, and he must continue doing what he's doing.
Okay. You know, what my good teacher is not telling you is that we have some comparative studies that we can do, and we can be able to project between what travels William Ruto has done and what other countries like the big Chinese economy has done. I'm just Googling on Wikipedia, and I'm looking at the travels that Jinping has made since he assumed power in 2012. Jinping, the president of the People's Republic of China, has made 42 foreign travels in 69 countries from 2012 to date. And you know, Jinping is controlling the world economy. And in his wisdom, he has only strategically visited those countries that are strategic to the development of the Republic of China. Here we have a hustler government, a government that came into power through the forcibly obtaining from Kenyans, a government that came to power through
rightfully our Wakili, the matter went to court and they're right.
Yes, that does not waive our right to critique and give our opinion.
Continue.
And I still hold that he forcibly obtained.
But you must criticize with facts. I can't even respond.
What I'm simply saying is this: if he does not understand the concept of obtaining by false pretense, is that he projected himself as the next Messiah and the next thing to happen in Kenya after the sliced bread, and that Kenya only waited for this president for it to break it, for it to realize its potential. I'm simply saying, if Jinping has traveled only, has made only 42 foreign travels, and he has a bigger population than the entire of Africa, and he's not exporting Chinese, he has held Chinese in his country to manufacture and produce for the world, because China has become the factory for the world. Who is this person who is now exporting labor out of a population of 47 million people? In these 47 million people, perhaps 1/3 of them are illiterate, because government has not invested in a proper education system and mechanisms to realize our potential. Here you are saying that you have been overwhelmed by labor. For example, this labor that he's talking about exporting, how will it absorb the border guy who is in Kenyaga station, or my village in Kirinyaga? How will it absorb the villager who is the coffee farmer who is farming in my Kirinyaga county, where coffee has failed and macadamia? So all this is hogwash. It's just halubalus. It's a babble and a justification that, we are doing X, Y, Z. I'm just asking. Export of labor was not part and parcel of his manifesto when he came to obtain from us by false pretense.
But he said
now it has become the
rightfully, the president said he was going to create employment and even shipping labor outside.
Any country that wants to be progressive will not export its best. It would want to retain its best, so that that best can help them realize their potential.
Wakili, let me just ask, in your own opinion,
yes,
what would you want to see the president do with regard to creating employment?
Well, well, you've asked me a very hard question, what I would wish him to do, because I know he has no capacity to do, but let me become hypothetical. If I was to become hypothetical, because he has no capacity to do and the ability to do it. If we had a president who is progressive and he wanted to change the plight of Kenyans, he would have invested in what happened in China. In China during the Cold War, China was not involved in the Cold War. The Cold War, which was much more of economic and political aspects, China concentrated in building itself.
What should the president concentrate on?
He should concentrate, one, on building capacity to the Kenyans. That capacity will then be used in industrialization and manufacturing industry. Number two, we should not just focus on industrialization, but you should also be able to focus on our agriculture, so that then the labor that is now exporting, we should be taking it to the counties to ensure that in the counties we have professional extension officers, we have professional veterinary officers, we have professional coffee experts, we have helping us to grow and improve our production. We should not be exporting this labor to those countries.
Let me come to Wilson.
Because you cannot export your best.
Wakili, let me come to Wilson.
When you talk about labor, I think
that is your area.
A better authority than you.
Yeah, but he has.
And
he dropped the ball.
He gave you your time.
He gave you your time.
He gave you your time.
Yes. He's no longer sustaining the labor movement.
He gave you your time. Kindly give him his time.
Yes.
Under the ILO framework, there's always agreement of labor migration and how to create jobs in the countries that have more jobs.
But you expose the
Wakili, give him his time.
Even in that ILO, you expose the surplus.
Wakili, kindly, please. Please, kindly.
You're not exporting.
Give him his time.
Them. Okay, I'm gonna give him, but you're not exporting this labor because you have the surplus. You're exporting this labor to mitigate the problems that you perceive.
Give him his time.
Okay. I don't think Wakili is the right person.
Wilson, continue, Wilson.
And next, when you invite some of us to this show, you must invite disciplined individuals who
Wilson,
can respect.
I take that as a compliment.
Continue.
No, it's not a compliment.
I take it as a compliment.
It's
on matters labor
behavior. Yes, but I'm raising publicly open complaint. You must ensure that your show is organized, is decent, and it adds value.
Unfortunately, this is not your show.
Now, in terms of employment, the fact is, labor availability is open across the world. We are now living in a global village, and labor migration is a normal thing. Kenya has got a population of over 50 million Kenyans, and the youth unemployment from data is very high. So even if we created jobs for the next 10 years through vibrant reforms, which is one of the flagship agenda of Kenya Kwanza, re-engineering the production sector. You can see we are starting the agricultural sector that will lead to manufacturing, the establishment of economic zones in 47 counties. That's going to create lots of jobs, but it's not enough for Kenyans. And that is why we must map out opportunities out of the country. And let me tell you, there are many Kenyans out there who are working physically out of the country. We must also create online jobs. We've got over 40,000 Kenyans working online in Kenya. And that is why we need to streamline and develop and strengthen the digital superhighway. Those are viable avenues of creating active employment for Kenyans, that we cannot bury our heads in the sand and wake up one morning and say, no, we can't allow some Kenyans to go and work out of the country. No, it is only a fool who can do that. And the president is so conscious and is properly advised by experts in that particular area. And there's a whole process of bilateral labor negotiations and signing of bilateral agreements with various governments. Let me tell you, Kenyans are the most sought after workers because of proficiency in English language in many countries in the world, whether they are engineers, they are veterinarians, they are nurses, those are skilled workers, and even the unskilled, they are the most sought after. And this is an opportunity that we now have to create and negotiate good working terms and conditions for Kenyans, the way other countries have done. If you look at a country like Philippines, when you go to Malaysia, majority of the workers in Malaysia are Filipinos. When you go to Saudi Arabia, the Middle East, the Gulf region, those bilateral negotiations exist. And this government, Kenya Kwanza government, will invest in deep bilateral negotiations across the globe so that we export our workforce, those who want to go and work, and alleviate the problem of unemployment which has been created over time, and particularly
wait first, Wakili. Let me just dwell there.
Yes.
Wilson, as the president rightfully so is getting into bilateral agreements, but what about not everyone will leave Kenya to go outside? We have manufacturing sectors that have gone down. What is the government's plan in enhancing and bringing back the failed factories and manufacturing to give Kenyans employment locally?
Part of the bilateral negotiations is to get investors to come down and invest in the manufacturing sector. That's a fact. That's a fact, because one of the key flagships, if you check, of Kenya Kwanza, considering the 5 pillars, is strengthening manufacturing and value addition. So that it's not an event, it's a process. It cannot be done in a day. It will take time. To get an investor to come down to Kenya and establish is going to take time. It's a process. Some of those things, getting investors and manufacturers to establish is not a one-day event. It's a process, and that is work in progress. the key agenda of Kenya Kwanza is to promote production sector. We've had an economy that has been more of consumption within the capital sector and killing the production sector.
Okay.
And as has been stated and disagreed, Kenya as an agricultural country is a potential area. We don't need to be importing sugar through cartels and thieves.
Okay,
we need to promote the sugarcane farmers, and we don't need to be importing milk. And let me tell you, for avoidance of doubt,
as you conclude,
those really trying to sabotage the production sectors like the sugar industries and the tea industries by importing their own goods tax-free to destroy the domestic producer, I don't think they will have space in the Kenya Kwanza government. And those are the thugs and cartels which my brother here represents. And that's why he's fighting so hard.
Those allegations against you.
Yes.
Can you respond? Yes.
He's a defender of cartels.
Yes.
As you respond to that, I want us to now go into the next
we
thing.
shall.
Is the government broke, according to the Cabinet Secretary Treasury?
Yes.
And on that, how is a broke government wanting to appoint CASs? So Sion, I'd want you to respond to that a little bit later.
Yes.
But
Now,
okay, yes.
may I begin by saying that those people who learn from history not are about to repeat the same mistakes. How did Europe develop? How did America develop? America and Europe developed and got itself to the Industrial Revolution by first of all making sure that they have laborers in their sugar plantation and their cotton plantation. And that is why in those days the transatlantic slave trade became fashionable to Europe and America because they had people to work in their labor in their fields. Out of that unfortunate transatlantic slave trade, America and Britain was able, and Europe was able to realize its exponential growth, which triggered the Industrial Revolution. So when you tell me that now you are still trying to export labor, you're removing laborers from Kenya, and then you tell me that Kenya will then be Kenyan economy will be excited towards industrialization, then you're telling me that you're not keen enough to learn from what happened in Europe and America. Had it not been for the availability of labor in Europe and America through the unfortunate transatlantic slave trade, then America and Britain would never or Europe would never have realized the Industrial Revolution. So I want to see how this concept and this phenomenon will work out in Kenya when you have brain draining the country of its laborers.
We get to see that as days
go. That one I pen it off there. Even with Mr. Sosioni, the so-called unionist.
You will respond to Sosioni, but let him finish.
Yes.
Is the government broke?
The government is broke.
Why?
No.
The government is broke because they are stealing, and they are stealing from the public coffers. Our public coffers have been raided. You know, you did ask how we are going to excite manufacturing, and Mr. Sosioni has weighed on issues of sugar and all that. I have some clients who are doing palm oil production. When government decided to, and they had we call it labor what? The labor portion of about 1,400 employees. Beginning this year in March, that factory has closed down. The 1,400 employees are now home. I hope they're on the list of William Ruto for export to the markets.
Okay, is the government broke?
The government is broke, Dennis.
And is the position of CASs a priority?
Of course, it's a priority for William Ruto because he wants to reward Sosioni and Co. As loyalists.
Let me just.
But they are not. They are not.
In a minute.
They are not a necessity as a reason of constitutional requirement. It's to you can see he has been out of employment and he needs some bit of rent. So that is a way of creating rent seeking for Mr. Sosioni and Co.
Now let me repart on the other bigger issue, the labor export. Let us not portray Kenya and the Kenya Kwanza government as if its strategic plan is only to export citizens out of the country. That's wrong. Then national strategic interest is to create jobs domestically, massively, through the 5 pillars of Kenya Kwanza. And once that is done, particularly reforming agricultural sector and strengthening the housing project as a key pillar, and the digital superhighway, Kenyans will be able to walk globally while they are within. But that notwithstanding, exporting labor that are needed by other countries is done through bilateral negotiation agreement. That's a fact for sure. And now down to the question that you asked.
Cabinet Secretary.
Now down to the question that you
He has
asked.
not rebutted
Now
my
down
preposition on the industrialization of Europe.
Let me just
Let him rebut that.
now-
let me handle this with
Now down.
the
You can't
Cabinet
put words in
Secretary
your
for
mouth.
Treasury
I've
said
answered.
the government is broke.
Now let me come to that. What is the fiscal situation of the country? The truth is, it is bad. It is bad. It's not balancing, and it is out of common sense. I can get down to history and and give you
That's where you get solace
give you
from.
the data. I can give you the historical data. When Moi retired, the domestic debts that he left after ruling for 24 years was 650 billion, with a capacity to collect revenue of over 250 billion per year. I hope you're marking that. When Kibaki retired, he left domestic debts at 1.7 trillion shillings, with a revenue capacity of over 1 trillion. You can see the balance. That is in 10 years. When his biggest client, the master of confusion, who created all these things, left after 10 years, he left the country with a whooping debt of 9.2 trillion. Can you say 1.7 to 9? And that, all that was borrowed, those debts that were borrowed, we cannot show what it did. 9.2 trillion. With the domestic capacity to collect revenue of 2.1 trillion. Look at the difference. Now, when William Ruto walked in, most of the loans that were borrowed by his client were configured to mature at this time. Now that they've matured, all the revenue that is collected goes into servicing debts. And that is common sense. It doesn't matter who is the president. That is the fiscal situation that is presented to the people of Kenya, all of us, the people of Kenya. It doesn't matter how it is. You must service the debts, you must collect revenue, you must deliver services to the people of Kenya. And when the CS Treasury explains this particular constraint, it is a fact for all of us to know, because the 9.2 trillion debt was not borrowed on 13 September 2022 when William Ruto was sworn in as president. It was an existing debt. And as a president, you take over liabilities and assets of the country. And that is a fact. We've got a highly constricted fiscal space in the country. And to deliver services is difficult, because you must have funds to service debts. And you must have funds to service development and finance the recurrent expenditure of the country, which my brother here does not understand. He will never understand. No. Allow me to finish.
In a minute, yes.
And that is why the president has been working very hard, round the clock, to ensure that we navigate this particular space through the various tax regimes and through the various bilateral negotiations, that we must still be able to deliver the development plan of Kenya without any problem, and we must be able to service debts, ensure that the pending bills are cleared within the country, and that the economy is working. We must ensure that we bring down the cost of living. The external global events that we are witnessing, the wars in Europe and Middle East, is compounding to the same problem, affecting the prices of fuel,
Mr. Sosioni.
The dollar.
Mr. Sosioni.
Yes.
No.
We live in this
As you conclude, as you conclude.
You will have your tongue.
I know I have my tongue.
Let him conclude. Let him conclude.
My brother, if you invite him next, and invite him and have him alone to talk in the show. We also need some little bit of respect and space to explain ourselves. Now, the global effects in the global economy, particularly in developing economies, is not easy. The dollar, the behavior of the dollar across many economies is bad. It's affecting the currencies, the weak currencies of the various countries. And Kenyan shilling is also not spared within that space. When you have the dollars almost withdrawn in almost all the economies, these are things that ordinary people will not understand. And therefore, trying to balance and make things work. And let me tell you, the efforts that the president has put, no one else could have done the way it has done, to the extent that now we are realizing economic growth at least 5% of the GDP. Those are clear indicators. We have maintained inflation at 6.8%. Those are good efforts that have been made, despite the existing challenges.
Yes.
Sosioni has admitted the government is broke.
Yes.
The same government wants to appoint CASs. Is it a priority? What the court has now pronounced itself on the same, but it is a matter that is currently even before the National Assembly.
Yes.
So while the government, even Sosioni admits, is broke, how do we balance that they want to increase expenditure on salaries?
Like I've kept on saying, that this is a government that has lost its cardinal point. They have no compass that they are following. Their manifesto is a manifesto that I would not call it ambitious, but unrealizable. Because you remember they targeted the hustlers who form the bulk of the unemployed individuals in this country. And therefore they are not able to deal with that situation. So to me, when you come and give priority to non-issues that never formed the debate of the agenda of the election, it shows that these people are just trying to run helter-skelter like a headless chicken, trying to prove to the people that at least they are working. Because the question of the CAS is not an issue that is ailing us. There is no evidence of non-performance of government because of the lack of those positions. And that's what the Court of Appeal has said, that you have not exhibited that government has been inhibited from performing due to the fact that Mr. Sosioni is not a CAS member. So in my view, like I said, is that the CAS position is a necessity for William Ruto to reward his colleagues and also create it as a conduit of siphoning public resources, because that is what naturally happens. He has weighed in so many issues about the public debt. If you look at the CBK debt data, they are saying we stand at 10.3 trillion. This 10.3, out of this, William Ruto has pumped, is it 1.8 trillion into that debt within his first year of office. He is scheduled to pump, I think, a further 3.8 billion, and my mathematics may not be right, but it's about 3 trillion into the same debt. Number 4, the most unfortunate thing is that all this debt that William is collecting, we cannot be able to locate it. He has not even built even a single Mama Mboga kibanda. He has not built even a single boda kibanda, so that you can tell us that the 1.4 trillion debt that I borrowed, we have appropriated it towards the creation of the Mama Mboga kibandas, the boda sheds, and all that. When you try to look at where President Uhuru applied his debt, and Mr. Sosioni, you don't need to look far. You just need to go where we are. Look across, you'll see the magnificent expressway. That is one way we can show that at least the debt that was borrowed was applied towards this. The unfortunate thing is that we are currently borrowing to stuff people's pockets. There is no delivery of services. Currently, the workers in Kirinyaga County have not been paid their November salary. Dongo, whom I cannot dispute because he is privy to information that I do not have, he's saying that the country is even struggling to pay the salaries. When you try to hear the justification for all this is that, oh, we are paying the debts. There is no country that operates in this country without debts. President Kenyatta 1 took debts. President Moi took debts. President Kibaki took debts. President Uhuru borrowed, and now Ruto is borrowing even much more. Remember, Parliament has also raised the debt ceiling. Why have they raised the debt ceiling? They have raised the debt ceiling because they are intending to borrow more. So when you keep here bastardizing and demonizing President Uhuru Kenyatta, oh, we are not able to progress because of President Uhuru Kenyatta's debts. Government is a going concern. There is something we call perpetuity in government. There is no time a president will come and say, I am now beginning on a clean slate. Yeah? So a government and a subsequent government will always be affected by the deeds and the misdeeds of the previous government. And therefore, government is not run like the Christian doctrine.
And that is now where
government is not run like the Christian doctrine.
The deeds and misdeeds of the previous government. And that is now what we are doing.
Wilson, let him finish. Let him finish. As you conclude,
yes. The Christian philosophy is that once you receive Jesus Christ as your personal savior, you begin a fresh life. That is not how government operates. Government operates, and Uhuru was also paying the debts that were taken by Kibaki. Kibaki paid Moi's debts. Moi paid Kenyatta's debts. So government is a going concern, and these guys must understand this. But because they have no ability to deliver, they have to keep on blaming President Kenyatta.
Let me go to Wilson.
And they want to completely wipe him.
Wilson, as you respond, the CAS position, is it a mandatory that it is there even when the court has even when the court has given its position on that?
Sasioni has no employment currently. It is necessary for him to have it.
Wakili, let him respond.
You've asked a question.
Yes.
Give me the space.
Yes.
And it is good is admitting the deeds and misdeeds of a previous government.
And so even Uhuru administered those deeds and misdeeds.
Wakili, let him respond.
Kibaki sorted the misdeeds of Moi.
Kindly.
Moi sorted the misdeeds of Kenyatta.
Which is correct. And William Ruto is going to sort out the most complicated, the biggest committed by a president. 9-point-something trillion debts within
10 years.
Space of 10 years.
And
when Kibaki in 10 years,
within 1 year.
Kibaki in 10 years was only able to work on 1.7 trillion, which is not much. So Uhuru dug huge holes that are going to be very complicated to really handle. And the truth is, we must pay for the debts that the country has taken. That is important. It's good he has admitted. So we are dealing with that challenge. The challenge.
And we shall also, and the subsequent government will also come and sort out the misdeeds.
It's not going to be very. I think we are a professional.
No, yes, I'm a hiker.
Wakili, let him respond. Wilson,
you have to
you've responded. Okay. You've responded.
I've not responded. Now, I've not responded.
Yes.
You've asked me a question. I was only reparting.
Continue.
And I want you to silence him first.
Wakili, let him respond.
You know, if it is making noise,
continue, sir.
Nobody can beat my record. But
continue,
I'm so
sir.
civil. I allow him to talk. He must allow me to talk.
Sosion.
Now, the position of the CS and creation of offices in government.
That has no money.
The position of the CAS existed for the full 5 years during the regime of his own client.
The president was the deputy president then.
Client. No, let me talk. We are talking about the president.
Yes, and
we're not talking about anybody else.
Right. Ruto being the deputy president.
All right, continue.
Now,
you cannot
it existed for 5 years. Now, let's go back to history. What informed the creation of those offices then? You're talking about a country with a population of 50 million people and 22 ministries. And operations and supervisions of those ministries in terms of efficiency is key. The ministries must deliver. Right now we have 51 state departments. And it is only a magician minister who can be able to ensure that there is total efficiency and delivery. Now, it has been audited and it is known the structure of leadership needs to be broadened so that the ministries can deliver. And precedence has been set. CASs operated for a full 5 years in the previous administration. And the courts allowed it. The courts allowed it, though the matter was not litigated to conclusion, to the penultimate end. And the administration of William Ruto, provided for under Article 132 of the Constitution, created it even more procedurally, unlike what his client did, by going through the due process and asking the public service to advertise and interview, shortlist, and submit names, which his client did not do. But William Ruto did that and arrived at 50 names. Fortunately, I'm one of them, yes, because I did apply. I was not told to apply. I placed my application, I was interviewed, I was shortlisted, and assigned duties. Now that the matter has gone through a court process and issues have been raised, I want to believe that the government will move forward and ensure that this is cured. And already actions are in place, and the president has complied, the government has complied with the court rulings. We shall always comply with the court rulings. And trying to argue that 50 individuals are going to raise a wage bill, I think is being mischievous. What are these 50 individuals coming to do? To enhance efficiency and provide leadership within the state departments. So really, the issue is we should be questioning how do we, if an administration would like to create certain offices, or if government, and this is generally all over the world, the judiciary exists to support the government of the day to do what it wants to do.
No, you are mistaken.
Listen. To do what it wants to do in a legal manner. I've not even finished my statement.
You're mistaken.
You're busy heckling me.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because
the judiciary is supposed to assist the executive to do what it wants to do in a legal and constitutional manner. Those judgments have been rendered. And those judgments have been rendered, and the issues raised, I'm sure, they are being addressed. And the bill that has been placed before the National Assembly for certain amendments will definitely answer to the questions that have been raised, and it will legitimize. And I am sure, once advertised, those who will be shortlisted will be vetted by Parliament and will be assigned duties. And the numbers... essentially, trying to say the country is broke, so don't
rest that matter there. Yes. But tomorrow is the 60th, the 60th Jamhuri Day.
Yes.
Tomorrow, we have 10 minutes. Tomorrow, what should we expect from President William Ruto to Kenyans, and what do Kenyans want to hear?
Thank you. But allow me to correct the misconception
2 minutes, please.
that Mr. Sosioni has created, that the judiciary exists to support the government. Mr. Sosioni must
address it exists to support the government.
That is to say, unless you want to retract,
exists.
Unless you want to retract your
Let me reframe it, because you are not listening.
No. I've heard you very well.
Because you are not listening.
Government, we have checks and balances that are created in the Constitution, and the three arms of government, save us for now when they are not, when they are functioning in unison, is that they must coexist through separation of powers, and checks and balances, and that the judiciary is the biggest checkmate. So it's unfortunate that the judiciary that we have is a judiciary that is now is fortunate that it is rising to the occasion to defend the doctrine of constitutionalism, and therefore when they give a pronouncement, they are in pursuit of that doctrine.
Wakili,
Number 2,
60th Jamhuri Day. What do Kenyans want to hear from the president tomorrow, 60 years later?
Kenyans are not eager to hear anything from the president. For one reason, since he began speaking in 2018, when he was on top of the vehicles, to where he has now gone to, and he has even graduated, now he's just not on top of the vehicles, but he's also on jets, flying all over the world. Ako juu ya gari na juu ya ndege. Kenyans do not have any expectation from this William Ruto. One thing is that whenever he speaks deceit. Whenever he speaks lies, to the extent that he has now been referred to as the Kaunda Uongo man by the creation of the thank God to the creativity of the people of Kenya. So they will come and just hear the obvious things. Oh, the hustlers funds has increased, that one person is borrowing 4.5 million. When you do your calculations, those who knows our mathematics, and Babu Owino is very good in this, and he has calculated this for me, is that you realize that even the allegation of the 4.5 million borrowing from the hustlers funds does not make sense. When you listen to the president, Mr. William Ruto's presentation in Parliament when he was making the State of the Nation, he indicated there is someone called Harrison Karisa Kenga, who has allegedly who has borrowed 714,000 to buy a boda, to buy a tuk-tuk. And then he says that the 714,000 that Karisa borrowed, he borrowed it as an operator of the tuk-tuk. Okay. But now he wants to borrow more for purchase of his own tuk-tuk. Okay. So we expect Mr. President tomorrow to give us lies as usual. We expect him to give us false hopes as usual. We expect him to come out gerrymandering left and center. We do not expect any coherent and any tangible preposition from him. Wilson. In fact, let me just finish. In fact, his statement should be lies to the Kenyans. That should be the title of this statement.
What should we expect from the president tomorrow on the 60th Jamhuri Day?
The 60th Jamhuri Day is quite thematic and is focusing on the youth, because we've got Continental Youth Connect Forum. And therefore, when you're talking about the youth and the future of the youth, both domestically and regionally, then you're talking about building capacity in them, so that they fit the fourth industrial revolution. We must have our youth, give them the greatest capacity that they can have. And that is one. Two, the youth need employment. That's the key provision that government must provide. And therefore, the theme tomorrow should be looking at all possible ways of creating employment opportunities for the youth. And the youth within the continent, they provide an opportunity for the future to break the barriers, to open boundaries, and we create one strong continent where we can promote manufacturing of our own goods, create our own employment, create opportunities, remove visa barriers, and allow free movement of people. So I think the president will have a lot to speak about within that particular thematic concept, considering that we have grown over 60 years and we've not set aside a great national moment like this one to give youth the hope and optimism. And by the way, we will continue talking about our story, what we shall do, what we have done, what we intend to do, and I think the president is very keen on that.
Dennis,
regardless of the loud noise from the corner of his clients, and continue doing what is right.
There is only one point.
And the national day.
We don't have time.
And the national day.
Gentlemen, we don't have time.
And the national
day. I
also
expect the president tomorrow to line up his Arizona graduates who are presided over by Dennis Itumbe on Friday or Saturday, when Dennis Itumbe became the chancellor of Arizona University. And I am writing to Arizona University. I am writing to Arizona University to confirm whether Dennis had the authority to preside over that graduation.
And we conclude Morning Prime today with a quote that says, "Water is the driving force of all nature," by Leonardo da Vinci. Whatever you do in this world, even our bodies, consist majority of water. The world is made up of water bodies as well. This has been Morning Prime. My name is Dennis Aseto. To our guest Wilson Sosion and Wakili Njirundegwa, heated debate inside, and we look forward to having this discussion in a later date. And that is where we take our short commercial break. Morning Prime will be back with much more.